Hi, everyone. This is Danielle Edwards from Jet Foundation speaking. Thank you so much for joining our virtual workshop series today. We're just going to wait for a few more minutes just for some other attendees to sign on. So just please be patient with us. Thank you. Hello, everyone. For those who have just joined on, my name is Danielle Edwards. I'm Jet Foundation's Community Engagement Manager. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're about to get here started in a few minutes. But thank you again for joining our virtual workshop series. It's an exciting time, and please let us know if there are any questions you may have in the comments section below. All right, everyone, I think we're going to start up on here now that seems like most of those who have registered are on. Again, for anyone who hasn't heard yet, my name is Danielle Edwards. I'm Jeff Foundation's Community Engagement Manager. Thank you so much again for joining us today. We're super excited to be hosting this virtual workshop with NS Pharma. For any questions you may have, feel free to drop it into the chat. Ben will be speaking and taking questions at the end. So if you have anything after any of the slides, feel free to share it. With that being said, I would like to turn it over with Ben Younger, who is with NS Pharma, and will be speaking more about their product and pipeline.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Younger, and I'm a medical science liaison with NS Pharma. Today, I'll be here talking with all of you about viltolarsen, our exon skipping therapy for boys with exon 53 amenable Duchenne. My sincerest thanks to all the representatives of the JET Foundation who make these events happen and make them look so easy. This is a recorded presentation, but I will also be answering your questions live afterwards. So feel free to write down any questions you have about viltolarsen as you think about them. A little about me. I got my doctorate in neuroscience from the University of Miami, where I studied viral vectors and nerve regeneration. So I've been studying the nervous system for over 10 years, and I have to say it's a fascinating field, and that the advances that are being made by scientists all over the world are exciting and inspiring. So a quick disclosure, NS Pharma's parent company is Nippon Shinyaku, and they work on viltolarsen with a hospital in Japan. I also have to mention that I may be making forward-looking statements like, once our phase 3 trial is complete, but I cannot predict the future with certainty. I guess that's never been more true than it is right now, right? All right, here's our HQ in New Jersey, our headquarters of North America. And below that is the headquarters in Kyoto, Japan. That's where we work on treatments for other rare diseases, as well as for muscular dystrophy for the last 101 years, since 1919. All right, let's talk a little bit about basic science. So you all know that DNA is the blueprint of life. It's the instructions found inside of all of the cells in your body, and those instructions get translated like from English to French, translated to make proteins, which do most of the work inside the cells. Now, in the middle of that process, there is RNA, which is spliced and diced so that everything fits together perfectly. And you can see how the pieces here in blue fit together. This is just a way of representing what we call the reading frame. Now, the gene we're talking about here is dystrophin, and some of the mutations in the gene that our boys have disrupt that reading frame, so the pieces don't fit together just right. Now, the first result of that sort of mutation is that splicing doesn't proceed correctly, so that the RNA downstream to that mutation gets lost. At the end, the cell has a shortened protein which doesn't do what it's supposed to do, just to act as a sort of shock absorber, like for your car, to transfer the force properly between contracting muscles and the cell's membrane. And so each muscle contraction damages and degrades the cells. In the next slide, we'll see how exon skipping can bypass this splicing issue in a simple way without touching the DNA itself. All right, this AON, it's an antisense oligonucleotide. It's just a chain of simple molecules that look a lot like RNA. And because it looks like RNA, it can also attach itself onto RNA and help change the way it acts. The way we designed viltolarsen, it binds near exon 53 and prevents its splicing. But splicing continues at the next exon, 54. And you can see that these two edges don't fit, this one and this one. But once we skip this exon, The edges of 52 and 54 fit well, so we have restored the reading frame. What we have at the end here is a protein that is almost normal, just missing one exon. So we call it truncated or shortened, and containing the most essential portions of that protein relating to its shock absorbing function. Now, before I talk a little more about the clinical status of viltolarsen, if you have any questions on the basic science of exon skipping, feel free to write them down now and I'll answer them once my presentation concludes. So who is a candidate for this exon skipping therapy? As I mentioned, viltolarsen is being studied in boys with mutations amenable to exon 53 skipping. For example, boys with deletions of exon 52, or 50 to 52, or 45 to 52. You can see in this pie chart that about 8% of boys with Duchenne may be helped by our viltolarsen therapy. And there is a small amount of overlap in amenability, which means that some mutations are open to more than one exon skipping medication. So this pie chart really adds up to more than 100%. Families may have some options to discuss with their neurologist. So about 3 years ago, the FDA designated viltolarsen as fast track, orphan drug, and rare pediatric disease designations. And we've been working since then on our new drug application, which we submitted last year for FDA approval, and it was accepted. Even more recently, we started our global phase 3 clinical trial, which I'll talk about more shortly. Our phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trials are complete, which showed proper dosing and some efficacy and safety data in 16 boys in Japan and 16 boys in North America. In the North American study, after a short safety period comparing the lower dose, 40 milligrams per kilogram, to a placebo control, patients then received either 40 or 80 milligrams per kilogram for 24 weeks, followed by an ongoing extension study for long-term testing. Now, what we looked at primarily is dystrophin protein production measured from muscle biopsy. We also kept a close eye on safety concerns, and I'll show you the summary of adverse events reported. All 16 boys in this study had confirmed mutations amenable to 53 skipping, which, as I said before, include deletions of 52 or 50 to 52, etc. All boys were 4 to less than 10 years old, were ambulatory and able to complete various clinical assessments of function, and were on a stable glucocorticoid dose for at least 3 months. Exclusion criteria: boys that could not enroll were those who had been sick recently or had other health concerns seen here, or were taking other investigational drugs. And here are the results of our phase 2 study. We found almost 6% dystrophin production in both 40 and 80 milligrams per kilogram groups. This slide is a good takeaway of the effectiveness of viltolarsen in terms of the dystrophin protein used as a biomarker. Restoring this protein is the first step in improving function in our boys with Duchenne, and we were able to get an average of 5.9% of normal levels after just 6 months of this weekly infusion. As I mentioned, in addition to the efficacy of our treatments, we also kept a close eye on safety. And here is a summary of the adverse events reported. We had no serious adverse events related to the treatments during these 24 weeks, and no serious events for up to 136 weeks in the ongoing extension trial. And of course, we will continue monitoring safety in the future, which brings us to our phase 3, our upcoming trial, known as Racer 53. We already have 35 sites lined up in 15 countries. So let's start with a brief summary. So this is going to be a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study. We're looking to enroll 74 boys, ages 4 to less than 8, to receive this once-weekly intravenous infusion at 80 milligrams per kilogram, or a placebo at the 1-to-1 ratio. Next up are the endpoints and measurements we're going to look at. So we have time to stand, time to run walk 10 meters, a 6-minute walk test, North Star ambulatory assessment, time to climb 4 steps, and some other dynamometer tests. The trial will also include various physical exams, lab tests, ECGs, and vital sign collection. Okay, inclusion criteria are males 4 to less than 8 years old, mutations that are 53 skipping amenable, able to walk independently with a time to stand score of less than 10 seconds. And again, a stable glucocorticoid dose for at least 3 months. Exclusion criteria include current or chronic viral infections, cardiomyopathy, severe behavioral problems or surgery within the last 3 months, other investigational drugs within 3 months or 5 times the half-life, or any gene therapy. All of these details can be found online on the clinicaltrials.gov website. And you can just search for Viltolarsen or search for Racer 53, the name of the trial. Lastly, just to give a basic overview of the study design, it'll start with a screening and randomization into placebo and drug groups, then 48 weeks of treatment, and then a 30-day follow-up, after which all participants will receive Viltolarsen. And again, more information can be found on this website. One more thing I'm pleased to share is our brand new expanded access program. And this program allows boys access to Viltolarsen while it's still an investigational drug. That is before FDA approval, which is expected to come sometime this summer. Your physician can ask for more details about the program using this email here, nspharma.expandedaccess@earlyaccesscare.com. Yeah, it's a mouthful. I'm pleased to report that COVID-19 hasn't disrupted our plans going forward in terms of this expanded access program or our phase 3 trial or our anticipated PDUFA date or the recent approval of Viltolarsen by the Japanese equivalent of the FDA. Overall, we are looking forward to getting our patients access to Viltolarsen as soon as possible. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about exon 53 skipping using Viltolarsen. I just want to say that I'm grateful to have this opportunity to be here virtually with all of you, focusing on our shared efforts to help our boys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. So with that being said, guys, feel free to drop some questions in the chat below for Ben to answer.
I see a question. Are patients who are non-ambulatory able to receive drug through the expanded access program? So that is a good example of someone who might not be eligible to be included in the phase 3, and therefore a good candidate for that expanded access program. So definitely, if you have questions like this, you can ask your physician, your neurologist, to go to ask questions through the email that I mentioned. Have we collected any functional data in phase 1 and 2? So we do have some functional data. We do see a small but significant improvement in function. But again, with a small n, the number of boys that we looked at was only 16. So we're looking for our phase 3 to make a more definitive statement about functional improvement. We do see some interesting correlation though in our functional data. The boys who had the highest dystrophin protein production were the ones who had the highest functional improvement. So we're pleased with those results. Okay, the next question here is there anything being discussed about allowing boys on the drug trial already to be able to continue to get the medication if the drug is approved by the FDA? Meaning if their insurance refuses to approve it, there will be assistance for them to stay on the medication. So we do offer patient assistance programs. We have a patient access department to be able to help with situations like this. I'm not sure about specific plans for this situation, but again, it's worth reaching out to us with questions if insurance, for whatever reason, doesn't approve of that drug. But I think we should be optimistic about that. I hope that answers your question. All right, the next question is, when do you see exon 44 skipping to start? Last summer at PPMD conference, we heard it would be in 2020. So we have no plans to release the exon 44 skipping therapies. We do have some other therapies in development, and as they're ready, we'll start the phase 1 and phase 2 trials. So no plans to announce just yet. All right, I also see the question, how did you come to the decision to use 80 milligram per kilogram dose for the phase 3 rather than the lower dose, which was 40? And as you saw, the results were a little bit higher for the 80 milligram dose, but pretty close in that North American study. In the Japanese study, there was a higher result from the 80 versus the 40. And in either case, both doses showed favorable safety profiles. And so with all of that data, we decided to proceed with the higher dose, hoping that it'll result in higher functional improvement. Which countries are the phase 2 trials in and phase 3? So phase 3, I'm not sure we've released the full list of sites yet, but for certain in Japan and North America and several countries in Europe. So again, you can find that information on clinicaltrials.gov. That available information should be there. For the phase 2, we just looked at North America. So for the North American phase 2 study was the United States and Canada, and for the Japanese study was just Japan. So for the phase 3, we'll have some more availability elsewhere in the globe. These are great questions. Thanks so much for asking. Keep them coming. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. Has anyone been approved for compassionate use yet? Not that I know of. I think the expanded access program is still relatively new. And so as the applications come in, we are approving them on a case-by-case basis yet. So as far as I know, no, but hopefully as we get more applications, we'll get some more compassionate use. Do we have any enrolled in the phase 3 yet? So we're still early in the patient recruitment process. Some of the sites haven't yet completed their paperwork, but as they do more, enrollment will proceed. But we have begun enrolling patients. Will boys on phase 2 ever find out specific information on their own data or how the medication is affecting them specifically? That's a good question. I'm not sure that NS Pharma is going to share that information, but perhaps that's a better question for individual neurologists. So I'm sure they would be more likely to share individual information with the boys and their families in question. That's a really interesting question. Yeah. Is the compassionate use for 80 dose? Yes, all doses going forward will be 80. So we're no longer using the 40 milligram dose. What makes your drug different from Sarepta's? I'll start by saying I cannot speak directly to Sarepta's drugs. Any comparison of clinical data has to be with the caveat, the warning that these are not data from the same trial, using different methods. You have to be cautious to make any comparisons. Viltolarsen is different from any other drug based on, at the basic level, by what it's made of. So the exon skipping therapy is an antisense oligonucleotide, and the chain of molecules itself is different from any other drugs. So it binds to a different portion of the dystrophin gene, and downstream of that, we see different levels of exon skipping and protein production. So as I mentioned, Viltolarsen has 5.9% of dystrophin, of the normal dystrophin levels that are produced after 6 months of weekly infusion. And so that's a good indication of the likelihood of seeing improved function. Are individual neurologists allowed to share that info? I'm not sure which info you're referring to with that question. That's a good question. I would hope that neurologists can share any information that's publicly available. Anything that I said today is open to be shared. So if you have any questions about the data, again, you can find our data online on PubMed or on our website. So you should be able to share anything. Will NS Pharma continue to study 40 milligrams if approved at 80? Or will those 8 boys just switch to 80 upon approval? Yeah. So going forward, we're not going to be looking at using the 40 milligram dose. So if anyone is still on it from an extension study, then I'm sure it would be switched to the 80. So again, going forward, we've seen effectiveness at this 80 dose in terms of protein and function and safety. And so everything going forward will be at that higher dose. How are you modifying travel plans and drug quantity due to COVID? Can boys get a larger quantity at once to last longer? Travel plans have been curtailed. We're doing a lot more teleconferencing like this meeting today. Travel plans for boys, for patients and their families, as well as how dose is released. I'm not certain. So we have some flexibility in terms of getting drug accessed. And so that would again be a question for your physician for how we can work with your individual situation, whether you live close to a site, your doctor, or further away. We can, our patient access services will find whatever works. Is it weekly infusions? That's right. So we have intravenous infusions weekly, either at the physician or at home. But yes, these are weekly infusions. Can I provide any more detail about the expected approval of Viltolarsen this summer? I'm afraid that's pretty much all the information I can share right now. The new drug application, the NDA, was accepted, and the approval is coming in the third quarter, which is sometime this summer. I can't give any more specific dates, but we remain optimistic that it'll come soon and we can get access for our boys as soon as possible. Do I have an email address? Yes, of course. If you have any more questions, again, if there are questions about the expanded access program, you can use the one from earlier. But if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to share my email. Maybe I can type it in the chat, but it's my initials, b.younger@nspharma.com. So b.younger. I said patients in the trial now could ask their neurologist about functional data. I'm not certain about how a neurologist can share the data, so that's going to be a question for them. I'm afraid I don't know that answer. Hope I didn't miss any questions. They came in fast. Thank you for all these great questions. They're really important. I'm glad you have a chance to ask us. I wish I could share what's coming in the future, but unfortunately nobody knows just yet. And I just want to convey my optimism and gratitude for being here and hearing all your questions. If you have any others, please reach out to NS Pharma. You can reach out to me or your primary physician, your neurologist. And there you go. My email address is in the chat function right now. And yeah, unless you have any others.
If that's it, I think we can close it out. But as Ben said, we will be sure to share all this information with you after. Please expect an email from Jet Foundation that will be including Ben's contact information as well. Oh, I think you have one more question, Ben.
Hey, great. One more question. All right. This is an easy. Will there be biopsies in the phase 3 trial, and how many? No. The answer is no. No biopsies in the phase 3. We have sufficient data from biopsy from our phase 2 that we do not want to take anymore. So phase 3 is all about function.
Fantastic. I think this was a great webinar, Ben. I think, it means a lot that you guys were able to do this for us and to, help the community in this time. As I said before, we'll be sure to send an email including all this information to everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we look forward to hosting even more of these in the future, and best of luck to the NS Pharma team on approval this summer. So thank you, everyone. All right, we can close down the webinar then. Thank you, everyone.